Hi everyone. So we're back after a long kind of lull that we weren't generating any videos. I wasn't doing much. I'm gonna be recording a cover probably very soon. Not that that matters. Um, and I'm breaking my own rules. I'm breaking all the fundamental rules. I'm kind of starting a video without having a clear idea of what I wanted to talk about because I had ideas. Um, and they left. That's what's been happening. There's with a grief fog. I write things down and then I don't go back to it. Um, I write ideas down. I don't return to them. When I do sit down to get some writing done, it often has to get done in one sitting and one shot, or I can't get it done. So even with ideas for videos, they go to my head. I might jot them down. I might put them in my Google Keep, and then they're gone. So today, really briefly, what one of the things I wanted to talk about that was striking me was that grief can lead to isolation. And then what that led me to understanding is that isolation leads to further cycles of like ignorance, basically. And this goes way away from the whole idea of even of grief, of just grief, pardon me, for stretching in front of you. It goes beyond just grief. So what happens is I'm realizing, and this might be just old hat of common knowledge to a lot of people, but I'm recognizing that through our sorrows and depression, if we happen to have depression, which is a terrible, terrible mental health concern, we self isolate. And then when you self isolate, you start to only focus, obviously, on yourself. You only know about yourself, your inner world, and maybe the world around you, such as your immediate family, such as perhaps if you're going to work. I haven't been going to work for a while, but a very small, small world. In fact, you can go out and be part of the world wherever you live every single day and still not be participating in it, really, because you're stuck in here. Grief did that to me to a whole different level. There have been times in my life that I've done that, but grief has put me way past that. I've had to really have strength and grace to not be like me, 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 me. And then, some people will tell you you have to be me, me, me sometimes when it comes to grief. But as a side note, I think popular psychology teaches people who never need to learn this lesson. Teaches people me, 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 really important. It teaches people who don't need to be taught self-preservation, that self-preservation is the most important thing. Very few people need to be taught to put themselves first, but that's a bit of a side note. So with again, I see I'm confusing myself. The idea is that when you isolate yourself, when you stop connecting with others, I mean, like I said, you can be out in the world and still not connect with anybody, really. When you stop connecting with others, when you don't really know other people, which I've seen happen to family and friends, they don't really know other people. They don't have a perspective on like anything. So this will annihilate your idea of reality and therefore create further deeper cycles of this. Oh no, things are so bad for me. Things are so bad for me. Me, 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 me. I must focus on myself. And then it's this, I don't know if it's called a self-fulfilling, there's a word I can't, it's like, I wish I had the word in my head before I started, but basically it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's different than that. It's like a feedback loop, something like that, where the more you isolate yourself, the more you have no idea what anyone else's life is like, the less you care what anyone else's life is like. And then, therefore, because there's no foil, there's no comparison, there's no perspective, you just keep on believing that everything is so bad for you. Now, I know that knowing that someone has it worse or other people have similar struggles or whatever, it doesn't fix anything. It actually doesn't fix anything. And there's been times that in my grief, I've been frustrated by the idea that, well, lots of other dads lost their kids too. I know. But there's an automatic comfort in not being alone, and there's an automatic perspective in knowing that you're not the only one. It doesn't take away from the inherent uniqueness of you as a person. It doesn't take away from the inherent uniqueness of this tremendous grief. It just means that at least you're not completely alone on this island of sorrow. If you look around, there's others. So now getting back to a more generalized idea, the self isolation that people do, the complete fragility of being so focused on themselves, whether it's through grief, depression, or anything else, can't lead to anything but more of it. And it's astounding the people in my life and out there, and I'm sure you know these people too if there's anybody watching this. It's astounding how remarkably fragile and limited other people's perspectives and understandings of things can be from for everything from like what it means to be comfortable financially to what it means to give a shit about somebody else. And I guess I'm saying that even when it's hard, you gotta try to maintain some level of connection with people outside of your little echo chamber, of yourself, especially only yourself, but also of people outside of your individual family unit or even siblings. Or you need to kind of know other people's lives in order to be a human. You're not going to know everybody's details intimately, and there's always a philosophy like, do we really ever know anybody? Okay, 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 granted. But you need to have some knowledge of how other people's lives are going in order to, hey, comparison is the thief of joy. I get that. But it's also the provider of perspective, of sanity, of, yes, there's going to be people that have some, things much better and then things much worse. It sounds so commonsensical, like, oh, you have friends and you know things about your friends. And by that, you have metrics and comparisons. But I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't see it out there. There's people who they don't know enough about anybody else to have any idea how they're doing, and it's really interesting. It's not just interesting. It's like it's mind blowing. So I guess my message today is, in grief or in anything else, you have to know others in order to help you know yourself. Comparison remains the thief of joy. Fine, definitely, but a complete lack of knowledge of anyone else's experience doesn't lead you to any kind of happiness. It's not ignorance is bliss. We're programmed for survival. So if you don't know anyone else, first of all, it's a really powerful protective measure to actually have some friendships, for Pete's sake. But secondly, it's going to give you that idea of where things are in your life, you know? And we can talk about the kinds of friends you have and all that, and that would probably be not really necessary or worthwhile really in this video right now. But you have to have some connections with others that are deep enough to know what they're going through, what they're not going through, what their life is kind of like. And I know people that are very, I think there's some people that I know that are very unwell because they've never opened the door to knowing people well enough to know certain things about them, and those things that they could know, those pieces of others' lives that you could be privy to. If you have no intimacy and no connection to others, you're just not going to be able to have any perspective in your life. So again, whether it's grief or not or anything else, sorry, my kids, all this background noise, that's okay. If they weren't making noise, that would be a problem, right? At the bottom of it all, I'm trying, and hopefully you're trying too, but it won't work. Hiding, and I'm getting there. Hiding won't work. Not allowing others to know anything about you won't work. Refusing to pay attention to anybody besides your own family unit won't work. Isolation leads to more isolation, leads to further depression, leads to lack of understanding, lack of healing, lack of joy, lack of everything that you need. Isolate when you have to, fine, whatever. I'm not the most social person in the world, but anyway, long video for nothing. Thanks for watching. Mind blowing. Get to know other people at least a little bit so that you won't be so ignorant and so that your mind won't race over things that it shouldn't race over. Perspective, perspective, perspective. Perspective. Thanks for watching.